Okay, let's jump right in today. We're taking a close look at Genesis, chapter 47.
Right, a really pivotal chapter.
It really is. We want to unpack the key events, the story beats, but also dig into some of the maybe surprising details and insights as Jacob's family gets settled in Egypt.
And alongside that, this huge shift happening across Egypt itself because of the famine. It's quite the contrast.
Exactly. So let's set the scene. Jacob and his whole family, they've made it. They're in Egypt.
Yeah, livestock and all. A huge undertaking.
And Joseph, he's now this, powerful figure. He doesn't hang about, goes straight to Pharaoh.
Makes sense. Got to formalize things.
And he brings 5 of his brothers with him, puts them right in front of Pharaoh.
Imagine that for those guys.
Wow.
Shepherds meeting the king of Egypt.
Must have been intimidating. And Pharaoh, well, he cuts to the chase, asks them, "So what do you do? What's your occupation?"
Pretty standard question, I suppose.
And they answer simply, honestly, "We're shepherds. Your servants are shepherds, just like our fathers were."
Straightforward. Sets the
Oh.
context.
Then they explain why they're there. The famine back in Canaan. It's bad. Really bad. No pasture for the flocks.
A matter of survival, basically.
So they ask, "Can we please settle in Goshen?"
And Pharaoh's reaction here is, well, it's pretty remarkable, isn't it? He's immediately generous.
Yeah, no hesitation.
None. He tells Joseph, essentially, Egypt's open to you. Settle your father, your brothers in the best part of the land. Let them have Goshen. That's a serious welcome.
More than just, "Okay, you can stay." It's prime real estate.
Absolutely. But then he adds something interesting. He says to Joseph, if you know any really capable men among them, put them in charge of my livestock.
Oh, wow. So not just giving them a place, but offering actual responsibility.
Exactly. He sees their skill, their expertise as shepherds, and thinks, hey, I can use that. It shows Pharaoh's pragmatic side and maybe his trust in Joseph's judgment about his family.
So Joseph does just that. He settles them, father, brothers, everyone, in Egypt, specifically in that district of Ramses.
Which the text confirms, yeah, that's the best part, just like Pharaoh said.
And it's not just land, right? Joseph makes sure they have food.
Critically important. He provides for his father, brothers, the whole household, based on how many kids they have even.
They're secure, at least for the moment, while the rest of Egypt and Canaan are really suffering.
A stark contrast already forming.
Okay, so after the family's settled, Joseph arranges another important meeting. He brings his father, Jacob, to meet Pharaoh.
The patriarch meets the king. A significant moment.
And Jacob, he blesses Pharaoh.
An act of respect, perhaps spiritual authority even.
Then Pharaoh asks Jacob that question. "How old are you?" Seems simple enough.
But Jacob's answer, it's packed with meaning. He says, the years of my pilgrimage are 130.
A pilgrimage, not just a life.
Exactly. And then he adds, they've been few and difficult, and they don't measure up to the years of his fathers, Abraham and Isaac.
Wow. So much in just a few words.
It's a life summary, isn't it? Acknowledging the hardships, losing Rachel, Joseph's supposed death, the family strife, the famine, and framing it all as a journey, a temporary stay. It's quite profound standing there before Pharaoh.
Gives you a real sense of his perspective. After that, Jacob blesses Pharaoh again, and then he leaves.
A memorable encounter, I'm sure.
Meanwhile, outside the palace, that famine, it's relentless. The text says it's causing Egypt and Canaan to, physically waste away.
Yeah, the language is strong. No food was in all the land. Just devastating.
And this is where Joseph's economic strategy really kicks into high gear.
Right. People need grain. The grain Joseph stored up. So, first step, they pay with money. Joseph collects all the money in Egypt and Canaan.
Every last bit.
Seems like it. Gathers it all up, brings it into Pharaoh's treasury, centralizing the wealth.
Okay, so inevitably the money runs out. What happens then?
People come back to Joseph. They're desperate. Give us food. Are we supposed to just die here? The money's gone.
Understandable panic.
So Joseph says, okay, no money. Bring your livestock. I'll give you food in exchange for your animals.
The next asset class, essentially.
Exactly. So for that whole year, people trade their horses, their sheep, goats, cattle, donkeys, everything for food.
And all that livestock now belongs to
Pharaoh.
Yeah?
Joseph is acting on his behalf. The state's assets are ballooning.
Okay, so fast forward another year. Money's gone. Livestock's gone. What's left?
They come back to Joseph again, and this time they lay it all out. Look, we can't hide it. Money's spent. Animals belong to you. There's nothing left except our bodies and our land.
Oh, man. That's bleak.
It is. And then they make this incredible, desperate offer.
What is it?
Buy us. Buy our land. In exchange for food, we'll be servants, slaves even, to Pharaoh, along with our land. Just give us seeds so we can plant, so we can live and not die, and the land doesn't become totally desolate.
They're offering everything, their freedom, their property, just to survive.
And Joseph, he accepts. The famine is just too severe. So he systematically buys up all the private land in Egypt for Pharaoh. Every field, every farm, it all becomes crown property. Except,
Ah, the exception.
right, the priest's land.
Why were they exempt?
The text says they got a regular food allowance directly from Pharaoh. They were already supported by the state, so they didn't face that same pressure to sell their land to eat.
Interesting. Shows a sort of embedded hierarchy even then.
Definitely. And the consequence for everyone else. The text is blunt. Joseph reduced the people to servitude. Or some translations say he moved them into cities, perhaps closer to distribution centers, but the core idea is a loss of autonomy and land ownership.
A massive social and economic restructuring.
Absolutely. From one end of Egypt to the other.
So with the land and the people now effectively belonging to Pharaoh, Joseph speaks to them again.
Yeah, he says, look, I've bought you and your land today for Pharaoh. Now here's seed, go plant the fields.
Okay, so there's a plan for the future at least.
There is. And he lays out the new rule, the new law of the land.
What's the deal?
When the harvest comes, 1/5, 20% goes to Pharaoh.
A permanent tax.
Exactly. The other 4/5, that's yours. For seed for next year and for food for you and your families. So they become tenant farmers on what used to be their own land, paying a hefty share to the state.
How do the people react to this? I mean, they've lost everything.
Their response is actually quite striking. They say, you have saved our lives. Let us find favor in your sight, my lord. We will be servants to Pharaoh.
Gratitude mixed with acceptance of their new reality.
Pretty much. Survival was the priority, and Joseph provided that. But they acknowledged their changed status. They're now bound to Pharaoh.
And this wasn't just a temporary fix for the famine?
No, the text emphasizes this became a lasting law. It is a statute to this day, it says, concerning the land of Egypt, that Pharaoh should have the 5th part.
Wow. A fundamental change driven by crisis.
Again, with that one exception, the priest's land remained their own.
Okay, so that's the dramatic picture across Egypt. But what about the Israelites back in Goshen? How are they doing through all this?
Well, that's the contrast, isn't it? Remember, they're settled in Ramesses, the best land.
Right.
While the Egyptians are losing land and becoming serfs, the text says about Israel, Jacob's family, they acquired property in it and were fruitful and multiplied greatly.
So the complete opposite experience.
Totally different. They're not losing property, they're gaining it. They're not diminishing. They're flourishing, growing rapidly in number. They seem completely insulated from the economic hardship hitting the Egyptians.
Quite a divergence in fortunes.
It really sets them apart.
Now, the chapter tells us Jacob lives another 17 years in Egypt. He reaches the age of 147.
A good long life, especially after calling his earlier years few and difficult.
As his time nears, he calls for Joseph. He has a final request.
And it's a really significant one. Speaks volumes about his core identity.
What does he ask?
He makes Joseph swear a very solemn oath. Put your hand under my thigh, the traditional way of making a serious vow. Promise me you'll deal kindly and truly with me. Don't bury me here in Egypt.
He doesn't want to stay, even after living there prosperously for years.
No. He says, carry me out of Egypt and bury me where my fathers are buried. He wants to be laid to rest in the Promised Land, in the ancestral tomb at Machpelah. It's about connection to heritage, to the covenant, to God's promises.
Wow. Even at the end, his heart is back in Canaan.
Deeply rooted there.
And Joseph, does he agree?
Immediately. He says, I will do as you have said, and he swears the oath.
Jacob gets his final wish secured.
He does. And the chapter ends with this quiet, powerful image. Then Israel bowed himself upon the head of the bed. Some translations say he worshipped, leaning on the top of his staff.
What do you make of that final picture?
It's a picture of peace, I think. Having settled this crucial matter of his burial, connecting him back to his roots and God's plan, he turns to worship. Maybe leaning on his staff, the symbol of his long journey, his pilgrimage. It's a final act of faith and dependence.
So quite a sweep in this chapter. We've seen Jacob's family find refuge and actually thrive in Goshen.
Yes, settling in, getting established, multiplying.
While at the same time, the rest of Egypt undergoes this massive economic and social upheaval because of the famine. Land changes hands. People become servants to the state.
Huge consolidation of power and resources under Pharaoh, orchestrated by Joseph.
And then it narrows back down to Jacob, the patriarch, securing that final promise about his burial. linking back to his ancestors and the land of Canaan.
It really covers a lot of ground, doesn't it? From family migration and settlement to national crisis management and transformation, all the way to a dying father's profound wish.
It definitely does.
And maybe something for you, the listener, to chew on. What does this story, Genesis 47, suggest about how societies handle extreme crises? What does it say about the dynamics of power, survival, and the state? Or even about how deeply connected people can feel to a particular piece of land, not just as a resource, but as part of their very identity and story, even generations later?